Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Christmas Eve, and I am joined by Chris Jack to talk all things Rangers. Good to have you back on, Chris. How's it going?
Not too bad. I'll apologise for us being about 90 seconds or so late because we were too busy gabbing and catching up on before we pressed the go live button there. So apologies to everyone for being slightly behind our usual 9:30 starting slot. No, all good this end. All sorted already for the big day, and of course that big day is Boxing Day at St Mirren. Looking forward to it immensely.
Right answer. Before we kick off, a big thank you. Chris Dykes has got in touch. He says, Merry Christmas to everyone at the Rangers Review. Superb coverage all year round. Thank you, buddy. And he's also gifted 5 Rangers Review memberships as well. That is very kind of you, Chris. So thank you very much for that. Excellent. It's at the time of giving, and Chris, that is fantastic generosity. So thank you. Right, let's crack on with the Rangers chat then. Bit of news to discuss, both with regards to the transfer window that's about to open in a few days' time. I was going to say next month, but it'll be here next week. And of course, news of a new Rangers kit deal as well, and much more in between. If you want to get your questions in as well, folks, then please do so. Just a heads up as well that tomorrow, for those of you that may be wondering and wanting your Rangers Review fix, myself and Johnny will be on for a special Q&A show where we answer your questions. So that is something I guess you can look forward to if you've opened all your presents, you've tanned all the selection boxes, and you're waiting for the dinner to come out. So there you go. What are you having tomorrow on dinner-wise, Chris, before we crack on with transfer news?
Just a quiet one for us tomorrow. Actually, a change of plan. Also, we've got the one tomorrow, so not made too many grand plans because our sleep routine has been more erratic than Cyril Dessers in the final third over the last couple of weeks. So we've not made too many plans. So very much a one day at a time approach for us tomorrow. So we've got family coming round in the morning. You're hosting the Christmas breakfast tomorrow, and then we'll see We'll see what the rest of the day brings. Obviously, tuning in for yourselves on the Q&A show at some point. I'll tune in for the King's speech after that. The most important one is obviously your show, and we'll see what the rest of the day brings after that.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, let's crack on then. You'd have seen an article on the website yesterday, folks, from Joshua, just on a bit of a transfer update. Not a real big surprise, but Rangers said to be opened for offers for Alex Lowry and Adam Devine. They're out of contract at Ibrox in the summer. They haven't featured for the first team this season. Both 21 years of age. A pair of them, it's fair to say that their careers have somewhat stalled in the last couple of seasons. Lowry was out on loan first half of last season at Hearts. It never quite worked for him out there. Adam Devine got a brief flirtation with the first team when Michael Beale came in. He was sent out on loan to Motherwell for the second half of last season, but neither of them have really staked a claim in the first team. I think I was a bit surprised that the pair of them never left in the summer. Chris, I'd imagine for the pair of them, in terms of their own careers, it's important they go out and play games somewhere.
I think that's the best route for all parties. Clearly not going to make it at Rangers. Clearly not going to have a long-term future at the club. And as Scotty Boy says there, if they can do a deal to potentially get something with a sell-on fee, that would be great. But you then look at the contract situation, that makes that difficult. So you would imagine a loan to somewhere for the second half of the campaign and then release at the end of the deal is the most likely. Which is a shame if you look at the deal that Rangers were able to do with Robbie McCrory, for example, who still had time on his deal. Not quite the same situation, but knew he had to move on and go and play football. Rangers have an option or have a clause in that if he does move on, they will benefit. It looks like with Lowry and Devine, just given the contract situation, that's not going to be the case. So I think it's the best thing for them. Disappointed for both of them. At one stage, you looked at where they were, looked at the state of the squad at different moments, and you thought there's definitely something there. There's a potential chance for them to they can handle that transition from academy to first team. It's just not quite happened. It's not that long ago since Michael Beale was saying that the captain had to look over his shoulder after Adam Devine played well in a couple of games. History shows also a very different story. Leon, Alec Lowry had that move to Hearts. Didn't really work out. Didn't have the impact that we all hoped. I can remember speaking about that at the time, and we thought that's a really good loan. It looked like a good club and a good platform for him to go and showcase his talent. Didn't really work out. Comes back injured. Manager obviously unhappy about that situation at the time. Hasn't had a look in, and it's just not going to work. I saw someone in the comments mention Leon King as well. Falls into the same category. 3 players who at one stage we thought could be good Rangers players, maybe squad players rather than starting 11 players, but it's just not quite unfolded in that manner for 3 of them. So I think they've all got talent, they've all got what it takes to go and have a good career somewhere else. It's just not going to be Ibrox.
Yep, tend to agree with that. In terms of other players, I was on the Q&A on the Extra channel yesterday. Someone asked, who do you expect to leave? Who do you think should be leaving next month? I mentioned those 2. Other ones I was trying to bring to my mind. Who else has said? Kieran Dowell. I think if Rangers can get a buyer for him, then great. Tom Lawrence is another one. I think it's difficult because he has been out injured, and finding a buyer for an injured player not necessarily easy. Other ones, Rabbi Matondo, if Rangers can get a buyer for him, then I think great. And Cyril Dessers is a big one, Chris. We know that Saint Etienne said to be keeping tabs on him if they can recoup much of that £4.5 million transfer fee, then great. Anyone else that springs to mind? Do you think Rangers should be trying to shift out?
I think you're looking at that handful who are on the fringes, who are picking up a wage, who are squad players but are not perhaps making the most of whatever chances they do get. I don't think Rangers will sell unless the offer is huge and they just can't turn it down. I don't think you'll see Rangers sell anyone that the manager wants to hold on to. I don't think you'll have that kind of standoff, if you like, of the manager says, I want him to stay, and the board say, sorry, but he's going. It would need to be, a huge offer for anyone to come into that conversation. And I don't think there's anyone who would come into that conversation right now. You look at form, you look at the situation with the squad. I'd be surprised if there's anyone that wants to absolutely burst the bank and take the decision out of Rangers' hands for any of the more kind of established first team players. You're then looking at those guys who are on the fringes, the 3 youth players that were mentioned, or 3 younger players that were mentioned. Dowell is one that will obviously come to mind. Matondo as well, just not had an impact at all that season. Lawrence, interesting again because of the contract situation. Clement spoke a lot about that towards the end of last season. Unhappy that the number of players that were allowed to get into that stage and run down the contract, you get no fee for them. So do you then try and move Tom Lawrence on just now and get something in for him as nominal as that fee is going to be? Or do you just kind of bite the bullet on that one and say, well, we'll keep him till the end of the season and then we'll make a call there? I don't think there's a rush to make a decision on his contract. I think they might just be happy to let that one run. And you then mentioned Dessers there. He's going to be, I think, the main talking point of the January window. What do Rangers do? Last couple of weeks, obviously, not had the same impact, not had the same opportunities because other players have deserved them. Other players deserve to be ahead of him. How does he see the situation? How do Rangers see the situation? That's going to be really interesting over these next couple of weeks.
Yes, it certainly is. Right, let's get to some of the comments that are coming in, some interesting points that are being made. First of all, Peggy says, what time is it the Christmas show tomorrow? I think it'll be around about 12, Peggy. I'll double check with Johnny about timings, but yeah, probably be early afternoon for that one. Right, let's get to this questions that sort of caught my eye on transfers. Matthew with the point, Merry Christmas crew, what do you think our budget will be? Will it be dependent on departures? I know that the club looking to bring in at a centre half, Chris. I think more likely than not that'll be a sort of loan move. Interestingly, the manager was quizzed on that in his think there was his pre-St Mirren press conference in Bargoed section. It conducted an extended press conference after the game on Saturday, where he looked ahead to the game against St Mirren on Boxing Day. He was asked about the centre-half situation and whether a returning Ben Davies could be an option. He didn't get drawn on that. He says that Patrick Stewart is a man to discuss with regards to budgets and that sort of thing. But the Rangers need to bring in a centre-half, but likely a loan deal, Chris, would you imagine? Do you think Rangers have got much money to spend here, or is it dependent on guys going out the door?
I think that's probably more likely to be a loan one, just because it will replace Casemiro. Now you look at the way that Rangers went about their business in the summer, the money was put into proper in terms of the fee. Casemiro then came in and provided a really good squad option. I know we touched on it when his injury was confirmed just a couple of weeks ago. I think losing someone with that positional flexibility has been a real blow. You look at even the game at the weekend there, playing Dujon Sterling at centre half. That's minutes that Casemiro would have got if he had been available. So I think they do need someone who does have that flexibility. Full-backs, they do look fairly well covered. So Ridvan has come back in and been good. Tav has certainly been much improved in the last couple of weeks. So I think you'd be happy going into the second half of the season with those options at right and left back. Having someone like Casemiro who could just slip in if required was handy. But I do think they will have to strengthen in that centre half area. Just short of numbers. Wee bit short of quality in certain situations as well. So I think that's if you were to say you can have one, I think it would be a centre half. What they do after that will be interesting. Not expecting too much. I don't think you'll see Rangers go out and sign 6 players in January. It's just not really the window for that. If there's something interesting comes up in terms of a loan, maybe even looking at pre-contracts for next year, I'm sure that's something that Niels Coppin and the manager and the recruitment staff are looking at all the time. But if MD's expecting 4, 5, 6 players to come in to kind of bolster the squad for the second half, I would be really, really surprised if Rangers do that. I think you're looking at a centre half on loan, and then you maybe see if you can, or those players that we touched on earlier on, if like Sir Matondo, Dowell, Dessers do leave, that's a lot that's then freed up in wages. That perhaps then maybe gives you the option for another loan that you can go and put like a Fabio Silva one. Gives you a bit more flexibility in terms of finances. So I think a lot coming in will depend on who leaves, but I'm not really expecting it to be that busy a month.
Okay, and potential. Francis raises the point here. She says we'll still look for a replacement for Souttar. I think it won't be available over the festivities. You're looking at probably the end of January, I'd imagine, for John Souttar. It's one of those ones. Do Rangers bring in 2 centre-halves with Souttar coming back at some point, or they just bring in one? I thought Dujon Sterling did reasonably well at the weekend against Dundee at centre-half. I did want to see him in there at centre-back, and he did start. I thought he was good alongside Robin Propper, who for me was my man of the match at the weekend. So I think that is good to have Sterling. I know he's had his injury problems, Chris, but I can't imagine the club will be looking out there to bring in a replacement for Souttar necessarily.
No, I don't think so. If you look at the manager's not given a definitive timeline on it, but it's going to be weeks rather than months. If it's a case of Souttar being ruled out until the end of the season, that then changes it, and you're then looking at a replacement for him and someone to fill the place that Casemiro has vacated. I don't see them doing something in terms of a Souttar like for like. If you like, I think he'll come back in over the coming weeks. Until that time, Rangers just have to muddle through these games, which is an unfortunate situation to be in, because you're certainly after events at the weekend. Next couple of weeks have taken on a slightly different complexion all of a sudden. Some big games coming up for Rangers. John Souttar would have had obviously a starting role to play in all those games. I think he's been a really solid performer over the season so far. So not having him for this run is a big blow. But I don't see them going in to bring someone in just to fill that gap. If it had been a longer term, perhaps, but we're talking weeks rather than months. they'll get by. They'll sign another defender, likely on loan, and I think that will complete the centre half options for the second half of the season.
Yep. People are mentioning Ben Davies. I'm just having a quick look to see how he got on. The Birmingham team were playing last night. They beat Crawley by a 1-0 and he played. So, by all accounts, he is doing well enough. Bluebell says that Ben Davies doing well at Birmingham, seems to have found his level. So maybe some cash for him. But who knows? Birmingham certainly flush with cash, and I'd imagine they will look to strengthen in the transfer window as well. Chris with the point as well says, does Chris think Rangers will listen to offers for Igaman? Report last week, or 2 weeks ago, was it, where it was claimed that Everton had sent scouts up to the Spurs game to have a look at him. He's done well, of course, since he's came in. Didn't think he had his best of games on Saturday, but that's going to happen with Hamza. He's just he's new into this team, isn't he? So you can't expect him to produce scintillating performances every game. But in terms of him leaving at some point, he will move on at some stage, Chris. I would expect Rangers to bring in a sizable fee for him when they do sell him on. I don't want them to sell him on next month, but certainly as far as player trading goes, and we heard Niels Coppin speaking at length about this AGM and interviews and what have you. He is certainly someone that Rangers would look to move on in the next season and a half, couple of seasons or two or so, just to get money in to fund the squad and sort of enhance it even further.
I think if there was interest in him, then good, because that would show that Rangers have done something right, and that the player has done something right. I think it was just an online rumour website that floated Everton link a couple of weeks ago. But again, he is the type of player or the type of profile that you'd imagine clubs will be having a look at. Just because they send a scout up does not mean to say they're thinking he's going to put X number of millions on the table. They're quite entitled to come and have a look, especially in that type of game. He would obviously have done himself no harm at all, given his performance that night, which is again good from Hamza's perspective, certainly good from a Rangers perspective. I think it would take a lot for Rangers to wish to lose him in January. As I said earlier on, I don't expect Rangers to try and sell off anyone that the manager believes is really important for them in the coming months. I think a man clearly falls into that category. So I would be surprised, but who knows? Other people may have taken a shine to him. They may well see the potential that the Rangers fans are now see the potential that the coaching staff and the manager saw when they first brought him in. And if it does materialise into links or interest or even a bid, great, because that's the situation that Rangers are in. They have to get better at that. Go and sign untried, untested players, give them a platform, allow them to go and flourish, and then sell them on. That is the model. I think the fans obviously can grow attached to good players, and they like seeing good players in the team. But there has to be this acknowledgement. This is where Rangers are. So don't become too attached to everyone, because there is a chance now that the better the player that Rangers are able to recruit, that they're able to go and pluck from obscurity almost. Certainly in Igaman's case. That is the model. Rangers have to get better at that, and that will be almost a mentality shift for the fans as well. They would have to get used to the fact that good players and players that they like will move on. That's just the world.
Yep. Incidentally, Alfredo Morelos just popped into my head there when we were talking about Hamza Igaman, and you'd have seen images and videos of him celebrating his team's League One, I think, for Nacional over there in Colombia. Scored as well in their match, and won another winner's medal. So well done to Alfredo over there. Interesting point coming in here from Matthew Burns. It's a player that was linked with the Rangers, I think, on deadline day, Chris. It never materialised in the end. Matthew Burns says, I wonder if Dundee would be open to a straight swap with Blyle Cameron. Midfielder, of course, at Dundee. Decent little player. Wouldn't be opposed to seeing him pitch up at Ibrox. This is almost Connor Barron-esque. I'm not saying he's a similar type of player. I do like him, though, and Rangers should be looking at these sort of guys and enhancing the squad. I do like Rangers to have a real contingent of young Scottish players in there, and he would certainly be a player of interest if I was Niels Coppin and Philip Clement.
I would certainly not be against that one, just for reasons that you outlined there. I think he's a really decent player, really tidy player. Is he going to come in and be an absolute standout in this Rangers squad straight away? Probably not. Does he have the ability to be a really important part of the squad? I think he does. As he's someone who has now established himself at Premiership level. We know what he can do. Does he have the ability to play at a European level? Does he have the ability to play at international level? Time will tell, but I think he's definitely someone that Rangers should be keeping a close eye on. I'm not sure about his contract situation off the top of my head, so not sure what it would take to get him out of Dens Park. But I think that's the type of deal that Rangers should be exploring. And also the last midfielder they signed from Dundee didn't do too badly in Glenn Kamara. So I think that would be I think that's one that, if you're looking at the type of profiles that Rangers could be looking at in January, I think Cameron falls into that category. So no, I would certainly not be against that one.
Yep, good stuff. Right, I want to move on to the kit news. Of course, you will have seen in the last few days, I think that the murmuring started last week with Rangers said to return to Umbro and end their partnership with Castor. And now it looks like Umbro will supply the Rangers kits from the 2025-26 season. Now, Castor have an agreement with the Umbro's UK licensee, GL Damek. The partnership announced earlier this year gives Castor exclusive right to operate as the Umbro professional team sports sub-licensee in key European markets. So clubs like Rangers will initially wear Umbro kits. The arrangement also paves the way for Castor to supply those teams again in the future. So the development signals a return for Rangers to Umbro. Of course, remember they had Umbro as the kit supplier when Walter was in charge, and before then, of course, back in the 80s as well. Your thoughts on this, Chris?
I think people always fascinates me to an extent that people care as much about who the strip supplier is. For me, it doesn't make a massive amount of difference who makes them. Because for me, I actually had this conversation with one of the press boys the other day there. For me, shirts are remembering that people will have their favourite Umbro one, they'll have their favourite Castor one. For me, shirts are remembered by what the team does on the park. If you look at a shirt, it brings back memories of players or league wins or cup wins or European nights, and that's how the shirts are remembered, rather than what the design of them is or what the quality is like or what manufacturer badges on them. So ultimately, if it's the best deal. If it's the best deal for the club in terms of finances and the best deal for the fans, ultimately, they don't want to be overpriced. They want to have a good quality product at the right price. There was also a lot of issues with Castor right at the start of the partnership. As long as those issues are not there, for me, it doesn't make a massive difference. But I know some people obviously buy into it a bit more than perhaps I do. So it's as long as it's the best deal for the Rangers fans and the best deal for Rangers in a financial sense, I'm happy to go with anyone. But I think people will see this as a good step. I know there's been a lot of debate about Castor over the course of the partnership. Thankfully, a lot of the kind of teething issues that we saw right at the start, they do seem to have been worked out of the process as Castor has naturally grown as a business and as an operation as well. Rangers were also a big deal for them right at the start. I think they're in a better place now than they were. You look at the recent court cases for Rangers, they're in a better place now than they have been for a long time in terms of merchandise and strips. So hopefully, whether it's this deal or the next one, hopefully Rangers are moving in a situation where the merchandise situation can become a bit more normalised, and ultimately the bottom line for the fans and for the club is the most important thing.
Yep. Peter Ferguson was enjoying the show, but he says, morning briefing ruined with the shirt chat. So he is not happy with this topic of discussion. But yeah, that is it.
As long as they're not a typo in shirt and he's just talking about our conversation in general.
Yeah, it probably is. Don't blame him if that is what he meant. Scott's Wilder with a point says that if Umbro are the next shirt maker, please let the first trip be a remake of the 77-78 top. Is that the one with the big collar, buddy, the red, white and blue collar on there? Peggy also says, I love the 1970s ones, the best. Bill quite rightly says it's who's in the shirt that counts. Yeah, absolutely. Certainly from the most recent Umbro shirts, I did like was it 2010, 2011 jersey when Rangers won the double? That one with the white collar and the blue sort of velvet material. I was a fan of that one, I've got to say. Is any Umbro ones that you prefer out of them, Chris? Obviously, the Manchester one was one, of course.
Are you just proving my point there that you remember that shirt because you like the shirt or because it was a good season?
Well, both of those things. I'm sure I got it at the time. I had Diouf on the back. I had El Hadj Diouf on the back, I'm sure, of that one. But they had a Manchester run, of course. They were Umbro quite a fair bit. Alex McLeish's final season that they had Umbro when Rangers made it to the last 16 of the Champions League. Wasn't too enamoured by that kit, I've got to say. But certainly the run to Manchester was one that I sort of liked, and certainly that one I just mentioned as well. And of course, people hark back to the 80s and some absolute beauties back then that Rangers had. But yeah, let us know in the comments, folks. Do you have a favourite Rangers Umbro jersey? Do let us know. Scott Girvin says, my first one, the Admiral with the zigzag in the collar. Incidentally, I've seen Admiral actually relaunching a lot of their old kits, a lot of old teams. I do hope that they can relaunch the two Rangers jerseys that they made back in 89 to 91. That would be absolutely fantastic. So if anyone from Admiral is watching, then please get that sorted. I know that I was in the Rangers store at the weekend. I had a little look about, and they've got the score draw Admiral home jersey in there. But yeah, you want the real deal. So hopefully that can be sorted at some point in the future. Right, let's move on. As John McIver says, absolutely. Of course, St Mirren on the horizon. Chris, what are you expecting on Boxing Day?
I think as the manager outlined in an interview that we had on the YouTube channel yesterday, and it's on the site this morning, a physical game, a bit of a battle, one of these ones where, as Clement says, you have to win the duels. But as I touched on earlier on, it's a really, really important game for Rangers now. Events at the weekend have changed the complexion slightly. People already looking ahead to the Old Firm game, saying, well, if Rangers can win that one, then that could change it again. Before then, they have to take care of business. It's two tricky games on the road against St Mirren and Motherwell. I'll be at them both over the next couple of days. Looking forward to them both. You'd expect Rangers to come through them both. I think the squad and the team are in a good place right now. If you'd offered people these games heading into an Old Firm game 2 months or so ago, I don't think the optimism, I don't think the levels of excitement would perhaps be the same. But recent weeks been a lot better. Dundee at the weekend was a bit flat in stages, but if you take your chances and your luck is different, you win 2-3, 4-0, and it's a very different mood. So I think they are right to be looking forward to these games. They should have a bit of confidence heading into them both, and if they can take care of business over this next week or so, or next couple of days or so, I say what a game we'll be building up to on January 2nd.
Yep, Rangers need to take care of business against Motherwell and St Mirren. If they can do that, I've just get a weird feeling that they're going to topple Celtic at Ibrox. And then I think if it goes 6 points, Chris, I know it's all ifs, buts and maybes. 6 points, technically, I know with the goal difference, it may as well be 7, but 6 points looks a lot better than what it was last week, shall we say.
It does. As I spoke to a fan of the show as I was walking through the car park on Saturday, he stopped me and we had a chat, and we outlined the dream scenario for Rangers, if you like, over this period, and it was Rangers beat Dundee, Celtic drop a couple of points, Rangers then take care of business, and you win the Old Firm game. I said that heading into January, that puts a very, very different slant on things. Yes, it would still leave them with a lot of work to do. Obviously, there's still a couple of Old Firm games to come after that, which gives Rangers a chance. But do they have the look of a side that can go and put together a run of 10 wins on the bounce? Right now, probably not. I do fear that inconsistency may still come in at stages, but they have to be more confident of doing that now than, as I say, they were a couple of weeks ago. The team's in a better place, squad's in a better place. All the chat about the manager has dampened down. Very, very few people talking about his situation now. Obviously, been changes at boardroom level, so the club just feels in a far better position, a far better place now than it did just a few weeks ago, and that's coming off the back of an Old Firm defeat in the cup final, unfortunately, as well. So this Old Firm game coming up, it does give them a huge chance if they can go into it with 6 points from St Mirren and Motherwell. If they can do that and then win the Old Firm game, I say that would then make the games in January really, really interesting. But you're not going to hear the manager getting too far ahead of himself. He'll stick to the mantra. I think it's important that fans do that as well. Yes, you can perhaps look ahead to Celtic, but you can't take anything for granted. They've come undone at St Mirren a couple of times in recent seasons. Can't afford to do that this time. If they can get through these two and win two scrappy 1-0s, I think everyone will take it. And I say they'll be then building up to a huge Old Firm game early next week.
Yep. On Instagram Live, Ricky Beresford just on the strip, he says Umbro 87-90 is untouchable. Yeah, it was a belter, Ricky. Before we wrap up, there's a couple of comments that came in, Chris, but it's Rangers orientated this because it stems from last weekend's horror show in the VAR room and the decision not to award Rangers a penalty, which for everyone in the refereeing fraternity, as Willie Collum was saying, it was a penalty kick. Now, two guys in question, Alan Muir and Frank Connor, are back on the refereeing list for the matches on the 29th. Frank Connor, assistant referee at Celtic against St Johnstone, and Alan Muir on VAR for the St Mirren against Dundee game on the 29th. I've seen, certainly on social media yesterday when this was discovered, a lot of anger at these two individuals being thrust back into officiating duties after a real dusting down from Willie Collum. I did feel that serious action would be taken against these guys. I'm not saying they should have been dismissed in any way, shape or form, but I didn't expect to see them back officiating so soon. Chris, you surprised at this?
Yes and no. Yes, surprised because they shouldn't be anywhere near these matches. No, because it's the SFA and that's generally how they do things. It's the lightest of raps on the knuckles, and then it's under the carpet, and it's back to business. I know there's not a huge pool of referees that they will say are qualified and experienced enough and have operated at a level that can do these games. But as you say, the message from Willie Collum last week was as strong as expected, as strong as it had to be. Definitely stronger than other members of the SFA were on the subject, and it had to be a stronger response to that. I thought Willie spoke well. I thought he did the right thing. Rangers have also had their say on it. They've made moves behind closed doors, and I think they will be really surprised at this chain of events as well. So these guys, they had to have a bigger punishment, I feel like. And as you say, they're not going to be handed their P45s and told to hand in their cards and their whistles at the front desk at Hampden and never be seen again. They were not going to be sacked because of this. But I think there had to be almost a bigger deterrent for other referees, that if you make mistakes that are of that level, that are as costly as they are, that have done as much damage to the game as they have done, there has to be a deterrent there. You can't just come back in and suddenly get Premiership games or get Celtic games within just a couple of rounds of fixtures. There had to be a deterrent there for other referees to sharpen their minds and say, we cannot let our standards drop to that level. Unacceptable, not good for the game, not good for any of us. No, we're not. No, we can't be at that level. Where is the deterrent here? So I thought Willie spoke really well on SFA TV, VAR TV, but the actions ultimately speak louder than words. And I think the reaction from the Rangers fans says it all. And I'm sure there will be people within the club who will be surprised to see the very least at these appointments.
Yeah, I mean, you see it with players and managers when they get suspensions. Often it's 2 or 3 games and what have you. I mean, to take them out the firing line for a weekend and then back in play, like you say, I know that they have a limited pool of officials, but come on, it doesn't look like there's much accountability there for grave errors like this. And like you say, when I watched that video last week, it seemed to me that those 2 officials in that VAR truck would be heavily dealt with, but that doesn't appear to be the case. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for now, folks. Big thank you to Chris for joining us as ever. Thank you to you all for tuning in. Just a reminder, myself and Johnny will be on Christmas Day, so we hope you can join us for that, for a special Merry Christmas Q&A show. If we don't speak to you then I hope Santa's good to you all. Hopefully you have a fantastic day tomorrow. And yeah, as of Boxing Day, we'll be back with all the usual pre-match and post-match content. You'll be at the game. You going to the game, Chris, yourself, or is it Joshua heading along for us?
No, it's me. He's taking his festive period with in-laws. He's back up in his country estate for the festive period. So no, Josh will be joining. I said we'll do the video. So Josh is on duty, but it's myself that's making a trip to Paisley. 5:30 in Boxing Day is not the ideal kick-off time. I has to say, I don't particularly not overly fond of that as a kick-off time. But if it's 3 points and back home, then that's the most important thing.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, folks, that'll do us there. Thank you, and we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.